All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to talk to you guys today about AI-powered gamification. I will say this is actually a topic that is pretty new to me. I've just started kind of exploring these different AI tools I'm going to show you today within the last, honestly, few weeks. So gamification, not so much new. I've been doing lots of fun things with that for a while now, and web space, not new to me either, but I'll get into that soon. So just a quick little fun fact. I always like to start my talks off with the holiday of the day. So if you're unaware, there's always a fun, quirky, unique holiday of the day, at least in the US. And today, one of the holidays, is National Cash Back Day. So cash back, I mean, that's kind of a way that credit cards have gamified the experience of buying things. So a little bit of a segue into let's talk about some gamification. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly go over what we're going to talk about today. So first we're going to start and talk about what is gamification, so what it really means, why it works, and how it's used to create these engaging experiences. All right, and then we're going to explore how AI can take these gamified experiences really to the next level by making the apps smarter and more adaptive. And then I've got a few demos for you guys, some simple demos using a few different AI libraries and models. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with a couple or a few key takeaways that you can apply to your own projects and yeah, hopefully create some cool AI gamified experiences. Okay, so before I get into all of that, I'm going to introduce myself real quick. So after graduating college, I went into teaching mathematics and computer science at the high school level, and I did that for 10 years. And actually, for my master's project, I explored how gamified experiences really can take the educational space to the next level. So I explored how technology and these gamified principles can really deeply engage students in their learning. And I did that with things like review games like quizzes and Kahoot and that kind of stuff. And then the last 2 years, I actually transitioned into tech. So now I work at Esri as a developer advocate. So I'm in the developer relations space. If you're unfamiliar with Esri, they are a geographic information systems company, so mapping. And in the development space, our biggest competitors are, well, Google Maps, Mapbox, so maybe you're familiar with those. I will get to use one of our SDKs today briefly, or actually one of our APIs, so you'll get to see that soon. Yeah, and then honestly, over the last the last few weeks, like I was saying, I've been exploring these AI tools and how you can use these in gamified experiences. So, oh, and I forgot to mention, a couple of months back, I did a talk at React Rally in Utah, and that was actually about how React can really take gamified apps to the next level. So, kind of got that idea from that. It's like already exploring the gamification space, decided to use AI. Okay. So let's talk about what gamification is. So gamification really is about taking key elements from games like scoring and badges, competition, and placing it into something that is not actually inherently a game. So when we think of gamification, we are taking our regular interactions and making it just, well, more fun. So to break it down a bit further, I'm going to go ahead and go through some core principles that talk about really why gamification works. Okay, so first we have progression and reward. So games do keep users engaged by showing a sense of progress, like leveling up or earning points or filling up a progress bar. And these elements do provide a tangible sense of achievement. All right, the next thing is challenges and goals. So this principle does provide users with something to work towards, so such as quests or daily challenges or time-sensitive tasks. So these kinds of challenges, they do give structure to some kind of end goal. They give a clear sense of purpose for the end goal. Okay, all right. The next one is feedback and reinforcement. So immediate feedback is really important in lots of different experiences. And of course, it's essential to maintaining motivation. And this could be anything from like positive feedback or reinforcement to things like a little bit of nudge to help them continue going. I know I'm going to talk about Duolingo here in a few minutes, but one of my friends, she uses Duolingo pretty frequently, but when she forgets to do it for a day, it's constantly nudging her on her phone screen like, hey, you need to play me. You need to actually come learn this language. She's learning Spanish. But anyways, it's this really sad face. It's really funny. All right, and then finally we have social interaction and competition. And these social features like leaderboards and challenges with friends, having these shared goals, it really creates that like sense of community with some like fostering that competition in a friendly way. All right, so let's look at a couple of gamification examples. So one that I'm kind of addicted to is Starbucks. So this is an app that actually is powered by React, and you can earn stars for any kind of purchases, or sometimes they'll have these bonus star, bonus movements that they have here going on. And these stars that you get actually allow you to get, free drinks and other things. So this kind of reward structure really keeps the customer coming back and enhances the loyalty as well. And then Duolingo, like I just said a second ago, it does use gamification in education, specifically learning languages. And they've incorporated things like XP, points, streaks, and levels, which they do encourage users to continue practicing daily. Okay. All right, so let's get into a little bit of AI now. So the role of AI in gamification, while traditional gamification uses points and rewards, badges and these kinds of things, levels, to drive engagement, AI takes it really further by adding real-time personalization and adaptation. So, personalization. AI-driven personalization means that each user's experience can be tailored based on their behaviors and preferences. So it really creates a unique journey for the user, and it keeps them motivated to keep going, even more so than something, not powered by AI. All right, and then real-time adaptation. It's another powerful aspect. With AI analyzing the actions as they happen, the system can adjust the challenges, provide that immediate feedback that's so important, and keep the experience dynamic. Now, to see this in action, I have another real-world example that we're going to go through. All right, so going back to Starbucks. So you may not have known, but Starbucks actually does use AI. It uses Deep Brew is what it's called. It's how they power their rewards program using their AI models. So the first thing in this cycle, this AI-driven gamification flow, is really starting with that user action. So it all starts with what's the user doing. For instance, for Starbucks, they could be ordering a drink. So then, after they do that, Deep Brew, the AI initiative by Starbucks, analyzes the action and it examines the customer's preferences, their purchase history, and their engagement patterns to really understand what will keep them kind of coming back. And then based on this analysis, the personalization starts to happen. So Starbucks does craft tailored responses. So this could be recommendations for specific products that maybe are related to what they've ordered previously, or personalized offers for bonus stars even. Okay. All right, and then with each interaction, the system does gather that user feedback, which does allow it to further refine recommendations. So say someone actually decides to participate in that bonus challenge, or they pick one of the specific challenges out of a few options. It'll tailor to that user's experience. Okay. And the final flow here. Finally, Starbucks Deep Brew, in this case, adjusts the future challenges, like seasonal bonuses or customized rewards, to keep the experience fresh. And this really does drive that loyalty and participation for Starbucks in this case. All right, I have another real-world example, a little bit deep dive into Duolingo a bit more. And so I just learned about this the other day. It's pretty cool. I've never used Duolingo Max myself, but basically what Duolingo Max does is they use AI to create these more personalized experiences, and they do this through a couple different ways. So one of their standout features is what's called role play. And here users can actually practice their conversational skills in these AI gamified specific scenarios, like they're in a cafe or they're planning a vacation. And it's not just a static quiz, since it's AI powered. It's really adapting dynamically and creating these unique experiences. So definitely something that I want to check out soon. The other thing that is really new, in fact, I just read an article about it, I think came out a month and a half ago or so, is this video call ability with what's called Lily. And this feature actually allows users to engage in real-time conversations, simulating real-world practice without the fear of making mistakes. I did see a demo of this, a video demo, where Lily actually, it's really funny. She's very sarcastic. So you may get a feeling of a little discouragement, potentially, but you just have to know the character's personality. So really, it's supposed to help build confidence, having those interactions with Lily. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're about to get into my demos that I've created. And so each of these demos are going to show a distinct way that AI can enhance common app features, making them more dynamic and responsive and engaging. So I'm going to walk through each of these these live demos of how AI can power different elements of user interaction. Now, one thing I do want to say is that there really is no need for advanced AI knowledge to appreciate the impact of these little demos. I made these, honestly, in each 30 minutes to an hour. And again, like I was saying, I just learned how to use all of these. So they're all built with JavaScript, by the way, too. So it should be pretty straightforward. I have a repo that I have all of these demos in that I will provide the QR code for at the end. So you'll be able to take a look at all the code and play around with it. Okay. So the first demo, this uses real-time sentiment analysis to detect a user's mood. So are they in a good mood? Are they in a bad mood? Is there nothing going on? So this kind of AI feature helps create interactions that feel really more relevant to the user. So imagine an app that can sense a user's frustration or enthusiasm. So it might offer hints to someone who needs help or really needs kind of that bit of a push or celebration to keep going. So in this simple demo that I'm about to show, I used Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services Text Analytics API, kind of a long name, to analyze text sentiment. So let's take a look. Okay, so as we can see, this app, it's pretty straightforward, very simple UI, didn't do a lot of styling there. It's just a text area and a button to analyze the text sentiment. So first, I'm going to go ahead and put something positive in, like, I'm happy. Okay, let's see what it says. Sentiment positive. Good. All right, so it's able to detect positivity. I'm mad. Negative. All right. And then something that's just very neutral, like, how about, yeah, I'll try okay. Let's see if that works. Yeah, okay, it is neutral. All right, so those are very simple ideas there. But really, what I've done here is in the UI element, I've made it change those colors, of course. But let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of the code and how this works here. Okay, so right here, what I've done is I have fetched this API. And then really all it needs in the body is just a few different properties. It just needs essentially that language, which in this case is English, and then the text input. Then once I get the results, the result comes back pretty quickly as a simple sentiment feeling, and then I'm able to display that. Now, one other cool thing about this analytics API is you're able to actually detect more than just a simple sentence. That's what this here is. I'm not going to go ahead and do it right now, but if you do want to play around with the code yourself, you're able to actually use that to then analyze a full paragraph, and it can go sentence by sentence and tell you each sentiment of each sentence instead of having to do it like one at a time, the user themselves. It's kind of cool. All right. On to the next one. Here we go. Okay, so this is the AI API that I've used the most, and I'm sure probably most of us have, OpenAI. And I've really just used it mostly in my JavaScript apps where I'm just injecting a bit of chatbot feature functionality, essentially. And I've done it with maps, so I'm going to show you that a little bit here because, well, I work for a mapping company. But for this specific scenario, I'm just using it really to create an interactive storytelling experience that's going to adapt to user choices. So it's going to make the story feel more personal for the user. The demo is going to showcase how AI enables dynamic branching narratives where really every decision shapes the path to the end. And this kind of storytelling, it's fun. I mean, it's used in all kinds of different applications like education, gaming, any sorts of applications, whether it's, well, for specifically games or not. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the demo. Bring that up. Here we go. Okay. All right, so pretty straightforward demo. All I've done here, and actually I'll explain a little bit of the code first here since I have it up. So within the OpenAI, in order to fetch the actual results, you need to use this messages within the body or the body property here, and then you give it a couple different roles. So the system role is really the overall feeling for the whole entire conversation of what's going to happen. So the prompt the content that I gave it here is, you are a storytelling assistant, maintain continuity with each response, using the same character, setting, and storyline. Each response should end with a complete sentence and conclude logically, always end with a period. Now, I will say that's really long. You don't normally have to make it that long, but I did in this case just to really give it exactly what I wanted. So yeah, it took quite a bit of time to modify that and get it to be what I want. All right, and then the other one is the role of the user, and that is that specific thing. It's not the general overall kind of story. It's what's happening after each time the user chooses something. So here, that first time, it's not using the story history, but each time after, it will to continue the story feel. And I've also given the character a name and that kind of thing. Okay, so welcome to your adventure. Choose your path to begin. Say I venture into the forest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the thick canopy, Alex ventured deeper into the forest, drawn by the whispering breeze and... Okay, not the greatest response, but that's AI for you. So you can certainly you can modify some of these properties to get lengthier responses. So max tokens, that's what you could use there to make the response longer. You can use a bigger tokens. There are other properties. I know of another one that's temperature, and I know that one is supposed to be actually more like factual based. So something like storytelling, you don't necessarily need it as much, but if you're trying to get a really good factual information, you could use that temperature property and set it to something like 0.1 or 0.2, and it'll definitely make sure it's trying to actually be based in fact versus something like 0.7 or 0.8. It kind of gives it that freeway or liberty to just be a little more creative. So it's still very finicky, I will say, the much I've played around with it, but it's worth trying. I guess why not play with one more, see what happens. Okay, I said, take a rest. Alex sank into the plush armchair by the window, watching as the rain began to gently patter against the glass, and decided that a quiet evening. Yeah, probably need more tokens than that to make it a bit more of a complete sentence. But you get the idea. All right. Third demo. I've got 5 total. Okay. So this demo showcases how AI can adjust gameplay difficulty on the fly. So it's going to respond to a player's performance. So if a player is performing really, really well, it's going to make the game harder. And if it starts to perform poorly, it'll make it a bit easier, and it'll just kind of go back and forth there. So this dynamic difficulty can be really helpful with maintaining the right level of challenge for the user. So in this demo, I've used TensorFlow.js to build a model that predicts difficulty levels based on performance scores. And just for fun, I also use the OpenAI API in here to give some motivating messages along the way. And I also use Chart.js, just another JavaScript library, just to show the history of the performance of how the user is performing. Okay, let me bring that up. There we go. Okay. All right, so when I click Simulate Performance, it's just going to give a value from 0 to 1, simulating how the user is performing, 0 being not very well, the worst, and 1 being doing very, very well. All right, so this first one, it says performance of 0.36 results in medium difficulty, which makes sense, tends more towards the middle. And then we've got this encouraging message here from OpenAI. Simulate again, another medium, a hard, and even harder, 0.99. You would expect then to potentially maybe do worse since it got really hard. Oh, all right, then it dropped down even more, so now it's back to medium difficulty. So you can see kind of how based on the user's performing, it's adjusting its difficulty levels. Okay, so I'm gonna explain a little bit of this code real quick. Couple minutes? Okay. All right, so the function create model, this initializes a simple neural network using TensorFlow. And it has layers that process player performance data to classify the difficulty as easy, medium, or hard is what I've set it to. And you can actually see that with all of this difficulty data here that's been given to it. It's feeding the, training the model here. Of course, you could do things like in between, like easy, medium, medium, hard, whatever you want. I just kept it pretty simple. Okay. And then, yeah, I think that's all I'll show for the code, but that's really the general idea of how it's training it. And then from there, it just continues to adjust. All right, second to last one here. So streak recognition. This is a gamification technique that identifies when users perform consistently or improve over time. So it's just going to look for, are they basically doing about the same? I remember in the classroom, I would look at students' grades over time. So I kind of think, like, oh, they're generally getting a C or a D every quiz. Okay, they're very, very consistent. But then sometimes you'd have like greatest improved. Oh, they had a 50 this last quiz. Now they have a 90. Great, that kind of thing. So we're looking for those kinds of streaks here. And I used Brain.js to detect both of these kinds of streaks. All right. Got it, okay. All right, this is another one where you have the neural network. It's a more simplified version than TensorFlow, so I would suggest it for things that are a bit more lightweight. When you're trying to train a model here. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just stay pretty consistent at first to see that consistency streak come up. I believe I set it to come up after approximately around 3 based on the training model that I gave it. Let's see, so I'm going to say 50, 51, saying you're on a consistency streak, 52, maybe next one. There we go. So after a 4th one, it finally said you're on a consistency streak. It highlighted that. Okay, and then let me just jump up to something really high, and hopefully it'll show us our improvement streak. Yay, there it is. Cool. Now, another thing to point out here is how confident the model actually is with saying the streak that you're on. So it's 100% confident that you definitely got better from that 50-something to a 90, clearly. All right, so again, all this code will be on GitHub, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my last demo here. Okay, so this is fun because this is where I took all 4 of them and put them together on a map. And of course, I had to show a map because, again, I work for a mapping company. So yeah, it's fun. It's just going to take all 4 elements and put it into this one application here. It's easier to show than describe, so let me just show it. And one of these elements I just added last minute. And I will say, again, OpenAI, it's a little finicky with some of the responses, so we'll see what happens. But essentially what's supposed to happen here is when I click on the map, you're supposed to be able to see, based on that location, a history fact and a trivia question. And that trivia question, just to make it real simple, it's going to be true or false. Make sure that happens. There we go. Okay, so it's saying something about this specific area here in Arlington, a volunteer firehouse, blah, blah, blah. And then it's asking a quiz question. Now, what I did is I injected the difficulty, the dynamic difficulty model that I made from TensorFlow to actually help say how difficult this question is. I will say, again, this is a very simple example, so it's getting the point across. But yeah, it would need a lot more training to actually be a bit more valid in that sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just say true and see what happens. And okay, sometimes that happens too. The model does actually sometimes make a mistake there. But I believe I said it should just say true each time. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put true, submit. Yeah, of course, when you're demoing it, OpenAI decides to not be true every time. But essentially, what I did to down here to create the consistency streak is after you answer about 2 to 3 questions correctly, it's going to actually fill that in and give you that consistency streak badge. After you answer so many questions correct, you're going to get points, level up. So that is how I used the Brain.js there. And again, OpenAI was for this pop-up, and the difficulty was TensorFlow. And then finally, the last thing, that sentiment that I used, the Azure API that I used, is down here. I'm going to say, I'm having fun. I'm going to analyze the feedback. So it says, sentiment is positive. Having a bit too much fun, maybe? Want to see something spooky? And it changes the base map to something spooky. Or I'm not having fun, or I'm having a bad time. Analyze the feedback. Sentiment's negative, don't get down. Want to see a fun base map style? And then it changes it all to pink. So anyway, so that, of course, like I said, there's using that Azure Sentiment API there. So just a fun way to kind of tie in all of the different AI libraries and models that I showed throughout each little demo. All right. So because I've run out of time, I'm going to go ahead and just finish it up here real quick. Again, these are the 4 different libraries that I used for all of these different demos. And there's advantages to each. But again, all of them are pretty easy to get started with. The code for all of them is pretty straightforward. So yeah, I would encourage you to go ahead and try them out. Of course, again, AI personalization is a huge thing with all of these types of demos. And there is the QR code for all of the demos along with the slides. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.